South Tucson struggles to plug a budget shortfall.
From a financial standpoint, it's almost like the perfect storm.
What it's like to live in the city within a city.
It's more like a big family.
Plus the challenges and opportunities for businesses in South Tucson. This is Metro Week. Hi, I'm Vanessa Barchfield, in for Andrea Kelly. Thanks for joining us. This week, we're devoting our show to the city of South Tucson. We'll talk about options for how city leaders can deal with the current financial crisis, to business owners about why they decided to open up shop. And we'll visit an organization that's working to promote economic empowerment. We'll also meet a lifelong resident after a look at the week's top stories from the Arizona Public Media Newsroom.
The Pima County Board of Supervisors gave its tentative okay to a more than $1 billion budget this week. The budget includes boosting property tax rates that would add less than $20 annually to the tax bill of a home assessed at the median price for the market. The tax increase would raise $20 million, which would be spent on street and road maintenance. A final vote on the budget and tax increase is scheduled for the supervisors' June 20th meeting. Tucson Electric Power reached a deal to buy enough solar energy to power 21,000 homes. The utility will buy the power at a rate it calls historically low, less than 3 cents a kilowatt hour. The project will also include a 30-megawatt storage facility, which will allow the solar electricity to be used anytime, day or night. And the National Weather Service forecasts equal chances of this year's monsoon bringing above or below average rainfall. The unclear prediction is due to a mix of normal ocean temperatures and above average snowpack in the Rocky Mountains. The forecast also predicts above average temperatures across Arizona for the next 3 months. For more on all of the week's top stories, visit our website.
Before we explore what's going on in South Tucson today, here's how the city came to be in the first place. The story of South Tucson starts in the 1930s. At the beginning of that decade, Tucson city limits stopped around 22nd Street. In 1933, a sewer line to the Veterans Administration Hospital on South 6th Avenue broke. But before fixing it, Tucson considered annexing all of the land down to the VA. Historian Dave Devine says that proposal riled the owners of the motels that lined South 6th Avenue. There were some illegal activities like gambling going on in the area, and they didn't want the city police to crack down. The proposal was eventually dropped, but 3 years later, Tucson started talking annexation once again. This time, in 1936, property owners of the area voted to incorporate the city of South Tucson. Then in 1938, a dispute with Tucson Water led residents to disincorporate, only to vote to become an independent city once again in 1940. More than a decade later, the city of Tucson annexed the land surrounding South Tucson, all the way down to the airport, making South Tucson the 1.2 square mile city within a city that it is today. It's long been known as the place to go in Tucson for Mexican food. According to the 2010 census, South Tucson's population is about 5,600. The majority of its residents are Latino. The next largest ethnic group is Native Americans. And today, facing a $660,000 budget shortfall, the city is in the midst of a financial crisis. That shortfall amounts to about 12% of its annual budget. I asked City Manager Sixto Molina how South Tucson got to this point.
From a financial standpoint, it's almost like the perfect storm. A lot of bills came due. Jail bill, which hadn't been paid in several years, all of a sudden, we entered into negotiations with the county to pay the jail bill. So we're paying that. That was an expense that should have been expected, but nevertheless is new. There were some other things, a lawsuit with waste management that we have to pay. There were some grants where our share was more than it had been in the past. And just a number of things that created that situation. So we're trying to work through that this budget year. It's going to be tough, no doubt.
In order to cut costs, South Tucson is considering closing its fire department and outsourcing that to the city of Tucson. They've also asked Tucson to provide police services for a few hours each day.
Because of the large deficit that we have that we're facing this coming budget year, we had to put everything on the table. And so we have to explore ways to cut costs and maintain the same level of services. And certainly because of the amount of money that we need to balance a budget, the two biggest departments within the city are the police and fire department. So we had to put those on the table, and we're looking at ways to try to keep what we have, but yet pay the bills. So,
Are there any essential services that the city of South Tucson wouldn't outsource that it really will retain?
now I think everything's on the table, including the court system. That's a little more complicated, and that involves very few employees, but outsourcing the court system would not cover the deficit that we're facing.
So what happens if you don't plug the gap? What will the city? How will the city operate?
Well, we will plug the gap. We'll continue to operate, but we may have to reduce service levels in certain areas. We're not ready to throw in the towel yet. We've still got a lot of research to do. We're meeting with other governmental entities to see what we can do. We still have some options, so we're still hopeful that we're going to work through this, and may not be the same, but we're going to work through this.
What benefits do the residents and business owners of the city of South Tucson get versus if they were in the city of Tucson?
Well, I believe it's a lot more personalized service. Generally, for example, the police officers, they know just about every house, every resident. I mean, it's only 1.2 square miles, so you get to circle this place several times a day during your beat. You get to know everybody, every alley, every nook and cranny. So there's personalized service. By knowing your population, you certainly have figured out who the bad people are, and so you can focus on the bad people. From the fire department perspective, they're within a minute and a half away of responding in a critical situation, a life-saving situation. That is very important. It could keep you from, dying.
You, of course, have a long history with the city of South Tucson. From your perspective, how has the city changed over the years?
Well, going back to the 1970s, when I first, actually the 60s, when I was first introduced to South Tucson, there was many bars here. There was over 52 businesses that had liquor licenses. South Tucson got its name Barrio Libre because it was kind of a free spirit city, like a mini Las Vegas. There was gambling, pool halls, bars, wine, women, and song. Over the years, the bars have disappeared. I believe we're down to one bar in the city now, and that's over on 4th Avenue. We still have restaurants and other businesses that do sell liquor, but it's not as prevalent as it used to be. During the last 10 years, there really hasn't been much in the form of economic development going on in South Tucson, probably because of the recession. The last big business boost that there was here was when the Food City was built back in the late, around the year 2000. But since then, not much has happened. We've added a McDonald's to 6th Avenue, but really, from a commercial standpoint, not much more has happened since then.
We're standing here at the corner of 29th and 6th Avenue, and you actually suggested this location. Why did you choose this intersection? What's the significance of it for South Tucson?
This is where two major roads meet, 29th Street, the east and west route, and South 6th Avenue. We get about 22 to 24,000 cars a day going up and down 6th Avenue. I'm not sure how many on 29th, but during rush hour, it's bumper to bumper, throughout the city. This is just the business center for the city of South Tucson.
What's being done to raise incomes and generate economic development here in the city?
There are 2 new businesses being built as we speak right now at the south end of the city. Hopefully that will entice other business owners. I personally think that South Tucson is a gold mine for commercial development, and it just hasn't been tapped before. But with if you're going to Rocky Point, if you're going to Disneyland, if you're going to the Riverwalk, and you're taking a freeway, you're going to drive through the corner of South Tucson because we have 2 freeways that meet right here in the city. the only place in the county where we have 2 freeways that meet. A lot of traffic. I think once the word gets out to the commercial industry, I think you're going to see more economic development.
Churchill Bronninger and Elizabeth Menke are believers in South Tucson's promise. They opened their bar, St. Charles Tavern, on South 4th Avenue in September 2015. I met them recently to ask why they decided on South Tucson.
You can't just walk onto 4th Avenue and buy a joint. It's pretty locked up and it's very expensive. So we were looking at kind of outlier locations, north of downtown, east, west, south, and we ended up finding this place and kind of fell in love with the bones of the space, and it all worked out.
And now, a year and a half in, how has the area changed over that time? Are you seeing much development in this area?
I feel like when we started exploring the idea of actually doing this, of biting on this space, we would come at night and sit on the porch in the back and watch the night go by. And okay, the lore, South Tucson lore precedes itself. And I think it has these days it has an unwarranted negative connotation that I think they've worked leaps and bounds to clear up, to make better. So we would watch, and it was quiet, and it was chill, and it was peaceful, and we knew that it would be okay. Changed in the last year and a half. I feel like it looks similar. I think the fact that people are aware of us and that we're here and that there's some economic upswing is probably, we're the kind of the lead of the change. There are places that are nearby, but they're outside of the perimeter of South Tucson. So there's a lot of development going on around us that is still very close, very community and part of this community, but it's technically outside the line.
And the flip side of that, of course, is gentrification. Are you concerned at all that you're sort of leading this new wave of gentrification?
Gentrification is when you take the abuelita who's been making handmade tortillas for decades and you buy her property and kick her out and put in a vegan bicycle shop. That's gentrification. What we did was took, this was an empty building with smashed windows, graffiti, and a homeless encampment. So when we bought it and started the rebuild, even City Hall said, this is not gentrification. This is revitalization, which is exactly what this town needs. So to me, South Tucson hasn't reached the level of gentrification as most people see it. This is just good old-fashioned community investment because we want to be here. And I tell you, the thing too that really is beautiful is the neighborhood itself. The people who live down here and come here on a daily or weekly or monthly basis, they're thankful. They're so happy we're here because this is their neighborhood bar.
But they're not trying to be just a neighborhood bar. I asked Elizabeth and Churchill if it's difficult to attract people from across Tucson to St. Charles.
Probably initially a little bit. Here's my example of that. Our opening weekend, so I don't think it was that Friday, it was a Saturday, and a bunch of friends were downtown and they were headed our way. They jumped in a cab and they told them 4th Avenue, South 4th and 27th. Are you sure you got that right? Oh yeah, that's where we're going. And so he started driving them here and he stopped at 22nd. He's like, I don't think I can take you there. I can't go south of 22nd. I don't think you know where you're going. They're, no, we're going. It's a new bar. They opened up a new bar. And we heard that from so many people that even the taxi drivers were like, you don't want to go there. Yeah, sure. And sure enough, they'd pull up, they'd drop them off, and you'd see the taxi driver just get out and look in, and he'd just scratch his head like, what? It made no sense. So there was a little bit of social adaptation that had to happen on the north end, and now it's largely, people don't even think about it. They've come here, they've been here, they see bands, and they have these events, and they're like, oh, this place is great.
As business owners, what are the biggest challenges you face operating specifically here in the city of South Tucson?
Sales tax, 11.6%, which is completely challenging because because as a bar you have to remain competitive in all of your pricing, especially with just the basics, the domestics, and really the crafts. We have a nice extensive bar, but we have to appeal to this neighborhood and appeal to the working people all over who are coming here and keep it affordable. So the challenge of 11.6 is real, but you just work
if you're in the foothills, you're tax base is about half that.
6.1%
So
outside
it's double
of Tucson.
what the rich kids are paying, you know, like it just is, because they make all their money on property taxes. Down here, the property taxes aren't where you are in the foothills, obviously, so they have to make that up somewhere, and that somewhere is the sales tax. So all the markets, all the restaurants, it's double what it is elsewhere in the city.
What services or amenities or shops would you like to see coming into or opening up here?
I would love to see more retail. I would love small time shops, even vintage or you know, assembled thrift, if you know what I mean. I think that's one of the missing links, and I think that could create this corridor. One of our sweethearts, No Way Cicle, is opened a little independent shop right over here on 6th and about 27th. That is so lovely, and young man starting out his little vision. I would love to see more of those going down the line.
Residents and businesses alike will be affected if South Tucson's police and fire services are outsourced. I asked them how they feel about that as business owners.
I'm concerned. We've gotten to know the fire department guys, and especially the police department guys. They're great, and the reason South Tucson is no longer kind of the war zone that it was in the 90s is they did a heck of a job controlling it and cleaning it up. One of the sergeants told me 15 years ago they averaged 100 calls a day, and they were largely bad calls, you know, felonious assaults and stabbings and shootings. Like it was very bad. Today they average 4 calls a day, and they're cats stuck in a tree call. Like they did all the heavy lifting to make South Tucson better. You know, we're kind of coming along. Even though we think of ourselves as, you know, relatively new, it's still a decade plus after all the heavy lifting was done by these guys. So it would be, and they know everyone. Like, it's community policing at its basis level. They know everyone. And will Tucson police do a horrible job? Probably not. I'm sure they do a great job, but you lose that little kind of Mayberry small town aspect that this town kind of has still, even though it's completely encircled by Tucson. You know, it would be a shame if we lost what these guys have really strived to make happen here.
The YWCA of Southern Arizona is working to help residents of South Tucson launch their own businesses. I talked with Marisol Flores Aguirre at the YWCA's House of Neighborly Services on West 33rd Street about its programs aimed at economic empowerment.
The Microbusiness Advancement Center, known as MAC, is charged with all of the economic justice, economic development programs for the YWCA. Currently, that includes our Women's Business Center, which just won a national award for the work that we're doing, specifically supporting Spanish-speaking entrepreneurs as well as immigrants and women. And we're housed here at the House of Neighborly Service, where we provide a variety of technical assistance, training, business counseling, coaching, services and opportunities here. Our kitchen incubator, which breaks ground in July, is also going to be here. We have just launched our Women's Impact Fund campaign that's designed and aimed really to raise $1.5 million to help support small businesses, providing micro-lending and a wealth of other opportunities for folks. And then we have our 2 legacy programs, Las Comadritas here, which is a senior meals program and nutrition, as well as our after-school and now launching our summer camp for kids. So we have a wide variety of services designed really to work with the community around entrepreneurship and economic justice.
Can you tell me more about the kitchen incubator?
Yeah, so the kitchen incubator really came out of conversations that we had as a result of working with our local entrepreneurs, where folks had amazing products, but they couldn't get it to market, or due to new regulations, they couldn't make their product anymore in their home kitchen. So we started to research models that had really focused on economic justice, economic development through food. And given the new UNESCO designation as a city of gastronomy for Tucson, as well as those conversations, probably about 60% of the WBC's clients are food entrepreneurs. We're right smack dab in the middle of 23 miles of Mexican food. So we really look to look at models that were beyond a commercial kitchen space, because there are commercial kitchens that are accessible, but none that offered an entrepreneurial support component. And that's really what the incubator is going to be doing. It's going to be providing kitchen access for folks as well as linking them with business services. And that's the model nationwide that's really working in communities like South Tucson. We're seeing that in El Paso, we're seeing that in San Francisco. And so in July, we expect to break ground. We'll be able to incubate about 8 businesses at a time.
And is the hope that people start businesses here in South Tucson?
Absolutely. I think that what we're seeing is that folks have businesses in South Tucson, but a lot of them are to subsidize their full-time job. A lot of folks in South Tucson have 2 or 3 full-time jobs, but they make tamales or tortillas or salsas, or they have catering businesses or bakeries and make cakes and those kinds of things. So we're seeing a lot of businesses around food specifically that have already existed, kind of in these informal economies that exist in South Tucson and that have existed generationally. What we're hoping that we can help them do is take that business to the next level, help them scale that business, help them get into other restaurant chains, help them get into local supermarkets, really provide a marketplace that will let them expand.
As downtown Tucson becomes revitalized and starts to boom, are you concerned at all about gentrification of this area?
Absolutely, and that's a concern from the community here. And so really what we're working to help support the community in South Tucson through is by providing tools. And so we come from the viewpoint that there's an amazing and vibrant that this is an amazing and vibrant community. South Tucson has a rich cultural heritage and understanding that also plays a role in food and development and in leatherworks and in sewing and different things. But community members here primarily are worried about gentrification, the rise of rent, taxes. Displacement is a big concern, and so what we hope to do is really provide folks with tools to enhance the opportunities that they themselves already have and help them to be more successful so that they can stay in their community, so that they can create the community that they want to see for themselves.
South Tucson is, of course, in the midst of a financial crisis. What role can local small businesses play in creating a tax base and making sure that the city has enough money to run on?
Well, that's always the question, right? But I think that if you see nationwide, local businesses are the heart of any economy. Local businesses are what keep a community vibrant, what keep a community interesting, what makes Tucson, Tucson, in the same way of what makes South Tucson, Tucson, or South Tucson. And so I think that the more local businesses that start, the more small businesses that are incubated, the more that folks have an opportunity to scale those businesses, that have access to capital is one of the huge barriers that small businesses have. Whether it's South Tucson, Tucson, Marrana, Ajo, you're going to see that play out because small businesses have a need for that access to capital. And so I think that as we're able to invest in those businesses then are also able to reinvest in their own communities. And so that's a good cycle to have. And I think that that's something that that definitely is going to be able to support the work and the work that the YWCA is doing, but also what the community wants to see for itself here.
What really makes South Tucson what it is? The people who live there. Lifelong resident Arlene Lopez describes how she thinks her city is unique within the larger metropolitan area.
I think this is more like, it's a small community, it's only 1 square mile. So it's more like a big family, you know what I mean? We know a lot of people, we converse with people all the time. I had someone come to view the greenway that's coming in through South Tucson. And as I was standing there talking to the young lady, people were coming by, waving, hey, how you doing, Arlene? When I was a volunteer for the police department, there was an incident that happened up the street. And so an officer was sitting right, across, putting information into his computer. People passed by, Arlene, you need a cup of coffee? You want a sandwich? You want me to stand there with you? So, I mean, we're really, like a family. And I don't know if you find that in metropolitan Tucson, I don't know.
And the city of South Tucson is, of course, right now considering disbanding its police and fire departments and contracting those services out to the city of Tucson. What's your perspective on that? What impact would that make on residents' lives here in the city of South Tucson?
I feel sad that if that would happen, because we have a really good police chief. Our officers, our paramedics, you know, the response time is very, very quick because we're such a small community. My concern is if we do contract with TPD, they have such a vast area to cover. Are they going to be able to respond as quickly as our people do here? That's one of the concerns. Safety is a concern. If we work in unison, would be wonderful, but you know, South Tucson is not a rich community. Officers, I don't know if they can afford to have, you know, to contract out, because I'm sure that the officers in Tucson get more pay than our officers. So that's a concern to me. If we do contract out, if the city does contract out, would they be able to afford it? And what kind of service would we be getting? Would it be as concentrated as we have now?
A historian told me that about every decade there's talk or a movement towards disincorporation of the city of South Tucson. Is that true from your perspective, having lived here, and is that happening right now?
I think that there has been talk in the past, disincorporating, I think because, I guess, you know, getting the budget, for one thing. Can we afford to exist, you know, as we are now? But people have a lot of pride, especially the people who've lived here for so long, that you know, they don't want to see South Tucson go away. That's why it's been, you know, protested in the past. But, you know, we don't know, whatever is best for this community. But a lot of people don't want to disincorporate.
Are there any projects or developments or anything happening right now in the city of South Tucson that you're particularly excited about?
Well, I'm excited about the Greenway because I think it'll bring more people into South Tucson. And in the past, maybe even now, people had a wrong perception of South Tucson. It's a terrible place to live, it's dangerous and all that. I've lived here all my life and I'm still alive, okay? So I think the Greenway is important. When we had the cyclovia, we had a health fair here for the community and a lot of people came into South Tucson. We had thousands of people here, which was important. I think keeping this facility alive, House of Neighborly Service, has been here since 1946 or about that time. And we were grateful that the YWCA bought it and is investing in South Tucson. So that is important for us. We don't have a lot of amenities in South Tucson because, you know, it costs money, but at least the YWCA is bringing more life into this campus.
And what's your sort of big picture hope for the future of the city of South Tucson?
I would like to see South Tucson as a beautiful little city. I would like to find a way to help our residents who can't afford to fix up their homes, to fix them up, make them safe, make them nice. We would like to, and we're starting to, be able to walk the streets. We have a very mobile community. People that walk a lot, catch the bus. As you know, the Suntran, it has a lot of ridership here, so we have a lot of people that, especially if you're elderly or if you can't afford a car or whatever, we need to keep that, you know, make it safe for people to walk, make the sidewalks safe for people to walk. We're working right now with the Pima Animal Control. We have an officer that's been assigned to us, thank goodness that the county is working with us, to get some of the stray dogs in control and talking to the people, saying you need to be, you know, concerned because we have children that walk to school or elderly that walk to wherever they need to go. And that we just want to make this community safe. And that to me would be wonderful, that we can just enjoy our community like we used to when we were kids.
That's it for us. Next week, an interview with the new president of the University of Arizona, Robert Robbins. Thanks for watching.